My mother is the one who's sick. She's manipulating all of you. She's had mental illness for years." My daughter screamed in court. I sat there silently, looking frail and confused, exactly what they expected from a grieving 67-year-old widow. Her lawyer smirked. Her husband whispered, "This will be easy." Then the judge asked one simple question. "Counselor, have you researched who Mrs. Henderson actually is?" The lawyer froze. My daughter's face went pale. What happened next destroyed their lives forever. Thank you for staying with me. It means more than you know. Before the story unfolds, comment below where you're watching from. I read every single one. And just so you know, parts of this story have been adapted for storytelling and educational value. Names and situations may feel familiar, but that's by chance. The message is what truly matters. Thomas died on a Tuesday in early November. The funeral was 4 days later. I stood at the front of the chapel and watched people file past his casket. Neighbors, former colleagues from the engineering firm, a few of his Thursday night poker friends. Dorothy stood beside me, her hand on my elbow, steady and silent. I had worked in banking for 30 years. I had managed fraud investigations. I had testified in court. But that day I could barely form sentences. Then I saw her. Amanda walked through the door with a man I had never met. She wore black, her face carefully composed. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. 14 years. 14 years since she had chosen Ryan Peterson over every warning I had given her. 14 years since she had stopped answering my calls. She approached the casket. The man beside her, Ryan, I assumed placed a hand on her shoulder. She touched the edge of the wood, her head bowed. It looked like grief. It looked real. I waited for her to turn, to meet my eyes, to say something. She did not. After a minute, she stepped back. Ryan guided her toward the door. They left without a word. No hug, no acknowledgement. Just a performance for a room full of strangers. Dorothy squeezed my arm. I did not cry. I had no tears left. 2 weeks later, I sat in the office of Thomas's estate attorney. The numbers were clear. The house in Austin valued at $340,000. Savings accounts $215,000. Life insurance $50,000. Total $605,000. All of it left to me. The attorney slid the documents across the desk. I signed where he indicated. My hand was steady. Thomas had been meticulous. Every account, every policy, every deed, all in order. He had wanted to make sure I would be safe. I drove home alone. Dorothy had offered to come, but I told her I needed to think. I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. 3 weeks after the funeral, the letter arrived. It was addressed to me, but the return address was a law firm in San Antonio. Connor Hayes, attorney at law. I opened it standing in the kitchen. "Dear Mrs. Henderson, I represent your daughter Amanda Peterson in a matter concerning the estate of Thomas Henderson. Ms. Peterson has asked me to inform you that she intends to contest the will. She believes her father was not of sound mind at the time the will was executed, and that you exerted undue influence over him during his final months. She further alleges that you isolated Mr. Henderson from his family and manipulated him for financial gain." I read it twice. Then I set it on the counter and called Dorothy. She answered on the second ring. I told her to come over. I did not explain why. When she arrived, I handed her the letter. She read it in silence, then looked up at me. "Barbara." I shook my head. I walked to the mantel and picked up the photograph of Thomas from our 40th anniversary. He was smiling, his arm around my shoulders. We had been happy. I set the photo down and turned back to Dorothy. "I won't let them take what he worked for," I said. "I promise." The second letter arrived on December 10th. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee when I saw the return address, the same law firm, Connor Hayes. I opened it slowly this time. "Petition for emergency guardianship." The words blurred for a moment. I blinked and read again. Amanda was petitioning the court to declare me mentally incompetent. The document stated that I was incapacitated by grief and unable to manage my own affairs. As evidence, they had attached a copy of my therapy records from when I was 17 years old, 50 years ago, a few sessions after my mother died. Private notes I had assumed were long destroyed. Amanda volunteered to serve as my guardian. I set the letter down. My hands were shaking. I picked up my phone and called the number Dorothy had given me 2 weeks earlier, a colleague from the bank, an attorney, Michael Reynolds. His voice was calm, professional. I explained who I was and why I was calling. He listened without interrupting. "Can you come in tomorrow morning?" he asked. "Yes." "Bring everything, every document, every letter." I hung up and stared at the petition. My own daughter, claiming I was incompetent. 3 days later, I received a call from the community bank where I had been volunteering as a fraud prevention advisor. I'd worked there 2 afternoons a week for the past 7 years, training staff, reviewing suspicious transactions, helping seniors protect their accounts. The branch manager's voice was stiff, apologetic. "Barbara, I'm sorry. We have to suspend your volunteer position. The legal team is concerned about liability until this guardianship matter is resolved." I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and tried to breathe. 7 years. 7 years of building trust in this community. Gone. Erased by a single petition. I drove home. I did not call Dorothy. I did not want to talk. But she came anyway. She found me sitting on the couch staring at the wall. She sat down beside me and did not say anything for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "You're the smartest person I know, Barbara. You've spent 30 years catching liars. You know how to do this." I looked at her. She used my therapy records from when I was a kid. Dorothy's face hardened. "Then you show them who you are now." That night, I could not sleep. At 11:47, I went into Thomas's office. I had avoided it for weeks. His desk was still covered with his papers. His reading glasses sat beside the lamp. I opened my laptop and created a new document. I titled it, "Questions." Why did Amanda come back after 14 years? Why now? What does Ryan need the money for? By 1 in the morning, I had 20 questions. They filled 2 pages. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the screen. Then I looked at the corner of the room, at the small safe built into the wall. Thomas had installed it 5 years ago. He had given me the combination, but I had never opened it. He kept his important papers there, deeds, insurance policies, his will. I stood up and walked over to the safe. It was 2 in the morning when I finally knew where to find the answers. I knelt down and began turning the dial. The combination was our wedding anniversary, 6 numbers, 43 years ago. The safe door opened with a soft click. Inside, I found a digital voice recorder, a backup SD card in a small plastic case, a leather file folder, and an envelope sealed with my name written in Thomas's handwriting. For Barbara. I sat back on my heels and stared at the envelope. My hands were shaking again. I opened it carefully. The letter was dated October 28th, 2 weeks before he died. "Barbara, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I knew what Amanda and Ryan were doing. I heard them talking when they thought I was asleep. I saw the way Ryan watched me, the way Amanda asked questions about our accounts. I wasn't confused. I wasn't losing my mind. I knew. I recorded 4 conversations. The recorder is in the safe. The instructions are in the folder. Please listen to them. Please use them. I wanted to tell you while I was alive, but I was afraid. Afraid you would confront them and they would hurt you. Afraid I would make things worse. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. Please, Barbara, stop them. I love you. Thomas." I folded the letter and set it down. Then I picked up the recorder. The instructions were simple. Thomas had labeled each file. I found my headphones in the desk drawer and plugged them in. I did not want to hear his voice out loud. Not yet. I pressed play on the first file. Recording 1 September 12th. Thomas's voice quiet and steady, then Amanda's voice louder. "Dad, you need to think about this realistically. You and Mom have over $200,000 in savings. What are you saving it for? You're 81. Thomas's reply was calm. "We're saving it for Barbara, in case something happens to me. But what if something happens to both of you? Ryan and I could manage it. We could invest it properly. Amanda, I've already made arrangements." Her voice shifted, sharper. "You mean you're leaving everything to Mom, even though I'm your daughter?" The recording ended. Recording to September 19th. Ryan's voice this time, smooth, controlled. "Thomas, I know this is hard to talk about, but Amanda and I are worried. You've seemed forgetful lately, repeating things. We think you should see a doctor. Get checked for dementia." Thomas's voice was firm. "I'm not forgetful, Ryan." I'm just saying it's normal at your age. And if something's going on, we need to know, for legal reasons, powers of attorney, that kind of thing. Silence, then Thomas. I don't need a power of attorney. Not yet, but you might. The recording ended. Recording 3, October 3rd. Amanda again. Her voice was softer now, pleading. Dad, this is just a precaution. The lawyer said everyone over 80 should have one. It's just paperwork. It doesn't mean anything unless you're actually incapacitated. Thomas, I don't understand why this is urgent. Because what if something happens and Mom can't make decisions Ryan and I can help? We're family. A pause, then the sound of papers rustling. Where do I sign? The recording ended. Recording 4, October 10th. This one was different. Thomas's voice was barely audible. He must have left the recorder on a table. In the background, I could hear Amanda and Ryan talking. They thought he was asleep. Ryan, she's gonna fight this. Amanda, she won't. She's grieving. She'll be too tired. Ryan, you don't know that. Amanda, I do. Trust me, she's weak right now. Ryan's voice dropped lower, colder. I've done this before. Old widows never fight back. Amanda laughed, quiet, bitter. Then we'll be fine. Silence. Then Thomas's voice so quiet I almost missed it. Barbara, please, stop him. The recording ended. I pulled the headphones off. My face was wet. I had not realized I was crying. I looked down at the recorder in my hands. Evidence. I opened my laptop and pulled up a search engine. My fingers moved automatically. Ryan Peterson background check. The clock on the wall read 4:47. I stared at the screen and thought about Ryan's words. I've done this before. Who else had he done this to? The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. I had slept 3 hours, my eyes burned. But I had a question that would not let me rest. Who else had Ryan done this to? I started with public records, marriage licenses, divorce filings, property transfers. I had spent 30 years at a bank. I knew how to follow paper trails. It took me 4 days of searching. On day 1, I found the marriage license. Ryan Peterson and Sarah Hoffman married in San Antonio, June 2004. Divorced March 2008. 4 years. On day 2, I found the obituary. Linda Hoffman. Died November 2007. Age 71. Survived by her daughter, Sarah. I pulled Linda's estate records. It took hours and 3 phone calls to county offices. The estate had been valued at approximately $180,000. House savings, a small investment account. The distribution records were sealed. Sarah divorced Ryan 4 months after her mother died. On day 3, I started searching for Sarah Hoffman. I cross-referenced databases, checked professional networks, looked for anyone who matched the timeline. By day 4, I found her, Sarah Coleman. She had remarried, medical billing specialist in Houston. The dates matched. I wrote down her phone number. Then I stared at it for 20 minutes. Finally, I called. She answered on the 3rd ring. This is Sarah. Sarah Coleman. My name is Barbara Henderson. I don't know if you remember, but my daughter Amanda married Ryan Peterson 14 years ago. You were married to him before that. Silence. Then, oh my God. Her voice cracked. I heard her sit down. He did it again, didn't he? Yes. I told her everything. About Thomas, about Amanda's petition, about the recordings. When I finished, she said quietly, I tried to warn her. What? I sent her an email before the wedding in 2010. I told her what Ryan did to my mother. I told her he was dangerous. My chest tightened. What did she say? She never replied. She blocked me. A week later, Ryan called me. He said Amanda thought I was a crazy ex-wife trying to ruin their relationship. He told me to stay away. I closed my eyes. I have documents, Sarah said. I kept everything. Bank statements, my mother's will, the emails. I didn't know what else to do with them. Can I see them? Yes, tomorrow. There's a coffee shop on Westheimer in Houston. I'll text you the address. The drive took 3 hours. Sarah was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a cardboard box in front of her. She was 45, maybe. Dark hair pulled back. Tired eyes. She stood when she saw me. We shook hands. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I wasn't sure you'd talk to me. She pushed the box toward me. It's all in here. 16 years. I kept thinking maybe someone would need it someday. I opened it. Bank statements, withdrawal slips, copies of checks, a printed copy of the email she had sent to Amanda. "Why did you keep all this?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. "Because no one believed me. The police said it was a family dispute. The lawyer said my mother signed everything willingly. Ryan walked away clean. And I thought someday someone will need to know the truth." I reached across the table and touched her hand. "Thank you." I drove home with the box on the passenger seat. Halfway back to Austin, my phone rang. Michael Reynolds. I pulled over and answered. "Barbara, we need to schedule a strategy meeting." "Michael, I found Ryan's ex-wife. He did this before. To her mother in 2007. We have a pattern." Silence. Then, "You found her." "How?" "Public records. Cross-references. I'm a bank manager, Michael. I know how to read financial predators." He let out a breath. "Can she testify?" "Yes." I looked at the box beside me, and I'm just getting started. The morning after I returned from Houston, I sat at my kitchen table with Sarah's box. 16 years of documents, bank statements, property deeds, power of attorney paperwork, Linda Hoffman's signature shaky toward the end. I spread them across the table and began to read. Day 1 and 2, the pattern emerges. Linda's bank statements showed withdrawals. Small at first, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Always with notations. Real estate investment. Property development fees. Consulting costs. By the time Linda died in November 2007, nearly $180,000 was gone. I cross-referenced the dates. Every withdrawal happened within a week of a document Ryan had helped Linda sign. Dorothy came by with lunch on the second day. She found me surrounded by papers, laptop, open 3 legal pads filled with notes. "Have you slept?" she asked. "Not much." I showed her the statements. "This is what Ryan did to Sarah's mother. Now I need to find out what else he's been doing." Day 3 through 8, the investigation. I started with public records. Peterson Properties Development, LLC, registered in Texas 2018, still active. The company claimed to develop residential properties. Their marketing materials promised 15 to 20% annual returns. I found 2 addresses listed as completed projects. One had been foreclosed in 2020. The other was never built, just an empty lot with an old "coming soon" sign. But the company was still accepting investments. That's when I knew. This wasn't just theft. It was a Ponzi scheme. I found investor forums, complaints dating back to 2018, posts from people who'd stopped receiving returns, posts asking if anyone else had trouble reaching Ryan Peterson. I started compiling names. The list grew longer than I'd imagined. Pages and pages of people, retirees, veterans, families who'd trusted Ryan with their savings. Each story was heartbreaking. Each loss was devastating. I created a spreadsheet. Each row was a life destroyed. Each column was a promise broken. When I finished, I sat back and stared at the screen. The scope of what Ryan had built was staggering. The numbers made my stomach turn. This was systematic, industrial-scale fraud. This was the iceberg Thomas had sensed, and we'd only been seeing the tip. Day 5, finding Frank. One name kept appearing in the forums, Frank Rodriguez. He'd posted dozens of times warning others sharing his story. I found his phone number through a veterans registry. He answered on the second ring. "Hello, Mr. Rodriguez. My name is Barbara Henderson. I'm investigating Ryan Peterson." A long pause. "Who are you with FBISEC?" "Neither. I'm his mother-in-law, and I'm building a case to stop him." Another pause, then, "How can I help?" Frank was 73, Korean War veteran. He'd invested $85,000 his entire retirement into Peterson Properties in 2019. "He showed me pictures of houses," Frank said, voice tired. "Beautiful homes. Said they'd be worth double in 5 years. For 2 years I got checks, 15% returns like clockwork. Then the checks stopped. When I called, he said there were temporary cash flow issues. That was 8 months ago. Have you contacted authorities?" I tried. Police said it's a civil matter. SEC said they'd investigate, but I haven't heard anything. I'm 73 years old, Mrs. Henderson. I work nights at a grocery store now just to pay rent. My hands tightened on the phone. "Mr. Rodriguez, would you be willing to testify if this goes to court? Yes, God, yes, please stop him. Over the next 3 days, I contacted 12 more victims. Each conversation was harder than the last. A retired teacher who'd lost her house, a widower who'd invested his wife's life insurance, a couple who'd mortgaged their home to invest more after seeing their initial returns. I documented everything: names, amounts, dates, timelines. By December 24th, Christmas Eve, I had a case file that would make any prosecutor's eyes light up. Dorothy found me that evening still at the kitchen table. "Barbara, it's Christmas Eve." I looked up. Dorothy Ryan has destroyed dozens of families. The scope of this, it's not just Thomas. It's years of fraud, millions of dollars. She sat down across from me. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the spreadsheet, at Frank's name, at all the others. "I'm going to make sure every single one of them gets justice." I opened my laptop and typed an email to Michael Reynolds. "Michael, we need to talk. This is bigger than I thought." 3 days after Christmas, I drove to Michael Reynolds' office in downtown Austin with 2 boxes of documents and my laptop. This was our first face-to-face meeting with the full picture. I'd spent the last week building a case that went far beyond Thomas's will. Michael's office was on the 6th floor glass windows overlooking the courthouse, where we'd soon face Connor Hayes. He met me at the door and helped carry the boxes to his conference table. "You weren't kidding," he said, eyeing the boxes. "This is bigger." I opened my laptop. "Before we get to what I found, tell me about Connor Hayes." Michael pulled up a file. 31 years old, works out of San Antonio, licensed for 6 years. He's handled about 24 probate cases, mostly straightforward estate disputes. Did he research me? He did. Michael slid a document across the table. He knows you worked at Community Trust Bank for 35 years. He knows you retired as vice president. He even found your fraud prevention certifications. I frowned. Then why does he think this petition will work? Michael tapped another document. "Because of this." I looked down. My psychological evaluation from 1974. Depression, anxiety, 2-week hospitalization after my father died when I was 17. 50 years old, a piece of paper from half a century ago. "Connor's strategy isn't that you're stupid," Michael said. "It's that you're broken. You were mentally vulnerable once. Thomas just died. He's betting the judge will believe grief has destroyed your judgment. He thinks your past makes your present irrelevant." I stared at the evaluation. So he did look, he just looked at the wrong things. Exactly. I opened the first box. Then let's show him what he missed. For the next 2 hours, I walked Michael through everything. The recordings. Thomas's voice shaking, but determined, documenting Amanda's pressure and Ryan's manipulation. Sarah Mitchell's documents. Linda Hoffman's estate, the pattern of withdrawals, the email warning Amanda in 2010 that she'd ignored. Then I pulled up the spreadsheet. "Peterson Properties Development, LLC, I said. "Ryan's been running it since 2018. Michael leaned forward, studying the screen. "This is a Ponzi scheme," I continued. "He promises 15 to 20% returns on real estate investments. 2 properties listed as completed were either foreclosed or never built. He's been using new investor money to pay returns to old investors." I clicked through pages of names. I found investor forums, complaints dating back years. I've been contacting victims, dozens of them across 6 years. "How much total?" "Millions." I highlighted a row. "This is Frank Rodriguez, 73 years old, Korean War veteran. He invested $85,000 his entire retirement. For 2 years, he got returns. Then they stopped. Now he works nights at a grocery store." Michael sat back. "Jesus. I've interviewed 12 victims so far. Every story is the same. Ryan showed them pictures, promised returns, delivered for a while, then vanished. Frank said he reported it to the SEC months ago. Nothing happened. Because they're backlogged," Michael said. "White-collar fraud cases take years, which is why Thomas became a target. Ryan needed fresh capital to keep paying old investors. Thomas had $600,000 in assets. Amanda was the perfect access point." Michael studied the spreadsheet for a long moment. "This is extraordinary work, Barbara. You've built a federal case. I was a fraud investigator for 30 years. This is what I do." "The question is strategy," Michael said, pacing. We have two separate issues: the probate case, Amanda, contesting the will and seeking guardianship, and the criminal case, Ryan's Ponzi scheme, and the exploitation of Thomas. We keep them separate, I said immediately. We win the probate case first. We prove I'm competent, that Thomas was of sound mind, and that Amanda and Ryan manipulated him. Then after we win, we hand everything about the Ponzi scheme to the FBI. Why wait? Because if we reveal the Ponzi evidence now, Ryan will know we're coming. He'll hide assets, destroy records run. But if he thinks this is just a simple estate dispute, just a grieving widow fighting her daughter, he'll stay confident, careless. Michael nodded slowly. Let him think he's only facing one charge when he's actually facing 20. Exactly. Michael sat back down. There's one more thing. The deposition is scheduled for January 10th. Connor will try to portray you as confused, grief-stricken, unable to manage your own affairs. What do you suggest? Answer his questions, but don't elaborate. If he asks about your work, tell him you worked in management. If he asks about your retirement, tell him Thomas wanted more time together. Be truthful, but don't volunteer information he doesn't specifically request. I understood. He'll assume I'm just a bank employee, not a fraud investigator. And when we get to trial, we'll show him exactly who you are. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Connor Hayes is going to underestimate me, not because he didn't look, because he looked at the wrong things. Michael extended his hand, not as a lawyer to a client, as a partner. I shook it. Let's destroy them, he said. The deposition took place in a sterile conference room in Connor Hayes' San Antonio office. Fluorescent lights, beige walls. A court reporter sat in the corner with her stenography machine. Connor sat across from me, polished and confident. Amanda attended via video conference, her face filling a monitor on the side table. Michael sat beside me, calm and watchful. Connor began with the standard questions: name, address, date of birth. Then he shifted to my mental state. Mrs. Henderson, how have you been coping since your husband's death? I paused, letting my hands tremble slightly on the table. It's been very difficult. Some days I can barely get out of bed. I understand. Can you tell me about your work history? I looked down as if gathering my thoughts. I worked at Community Trust Bank for a long time. Can you be more specific about your role? I was in management, operations, compliance, things like that. Connor leaned forward. What was your exact title? I hesitated, rubbing my temple. It changed over the years. I'm not sure I remember all the details. It's been hard to think clearly since Thomas. My voice trailed off. I dabbed at my eyes with a tissue. Connor's expression softened, sensing victory. Did your work involve direct customer service? Sometimes. I helped people. I tried to help people. And you retired in 2022. Yes, Thomas wanted us to have more time together. My voice cracked. And now he's gone. On the video monitor, Amanda dabbed at her own eyes, performing grief for the camera. Connor glanced at his notes. Mrs. Henderson, do you feel capable of managing your late husband's estate? It's substantial, over $600,000. I looked at Michael as if seeking guidance. He gave me a small nod. I don't know. The numbers are so big. Thomas always handled the finances. Connor exchanged a satisfied glance with someone off camera. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I think we have everything we need. The deposition ended. The court reporter packed up her equipment. Connor stood already drafting his next motion in his mind. As soon as the door closed behind him, I straightened in my chair. The trembling hands stilled. The tears dried. My voice returned to its normal, clear tone. Michael closed his laptop. That was quite a performance. I didn't lie, I said firmly. Every word I said was true. You just didn't elaborate. You didn't ask the right questions. I worked in management, that's accurate. I helped people, also accurate. He assumed I was a teller or a loan officer. That's his failure, not mine. Michael smiled. It's still risky. If the judge thinks you were deliberately misleading. I wasn't. I was a grieving widow struggling to remember details, which, frankly, isn't far from the truth. Grief doesn't make you incompetent. It just makes you tired. Michael packed his briefcase. Connor's going to go into court thinking he has an easy win. Good. That evening at Amanda and Ryan's house, Amanda replayed the deposition video for her husband. "Look at her," Amanda said, pointing at the screen. "She can't even remember her own job title. She's completely broken." Ryan watched, arms crossed. "This will be easy. The judge will see she can't handle the estate. You'll get guardianship, and then everything goes back where it belongs," Amanda finished. They smiled at each other. Neither of them noticed what Barbara had actually said. Management, compliance, helped people. They heard what they wanted to hear: weakness. I drove home alone, windows down, despite the January chill. My phone rang. Dorothy. "How did it go?" "Perfect," I said. "They think I'm incompetent." "Exactly as planned." Dorothy laughed. "You're terrifying, you know that." "Connor Hayes called me a bank employee. He has no idea what's coming." And Amanda, I thought of my daughter's face on that video monitor, the fake tears, the calculated performance. "She thinks this will be easy," I said quietly. "She has no idea who I am." I hung up and drove the rest of the way in silence. Tomorrow, Michael would file our response. In 2 weeks, we'd be in court. And Connor Hayes would learn that grief and weakness are not the same thing. 2 weeks later, the night before the trial, I drove to the cemetery. It was January 24th. The sun was setting. The air was cold. I brought white roses, Thomas's favorite. His grave was in the older section under a live oak tree. I knelt down and set the roses beside the headstone. Thomas William Henderson, beloved husband, 1943 to 2024. I touched the stone. It was cold beneath my fingers. "Tomorrow is the day," I said quietly. "I have everything you left me, the recordings, the journal, your letter. I'm ready." The wind moved through the branches above me. "I love you, always." I stayed for 10 minutes. Then I walked back to my car. Dorothy was waiting, leaning against the door. She did not ask what I had said. "Let's go home." At 10 that night, I sat at the kitchen table. 3 evidence folders spread out in front of me. Recordings: Sarah Mitchell / Linda Hoffman, Peterson Properties, Ponzi. Everything organized, everything documented, everything ready. I texted Michael, "See you at 8:30 tomorrow." His reply came immediately. "Ready?" "Yes." I opened Thomas's desk drawer and pulled out his letter, the one from the safe. I unfolded it and read it again. "Please, Barbara, use these recordings. Stop them." I folded it carefully and slipped it into the pocket of the jacket I would wear tomorrow. A talisman. I set my alarm for 6. I did not fall asleep until 2. When the alarm went off, I got up immediately. I showered, made coffee, dressed carefully. Navy suit, not black, not the color of mourning. Navy. Professional. Strong. I fastened Thomas's wedding ring onto a thin gold chain and put it around my neck. I tucked it under my blouse. No one would see it, but I would know it was there. Pearl earrings, my mother's, simple, elegant. I looked at myself in the mirror. Not a grieving widow, a warrior. Dorothy arrived at 8. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:30. Travis County Courthouse, downtown Austin. The building was tall, granite, imposing. Michael was waiting at the entrance. Dorothy squeezed my hand before I went through security. "Go get them." Courtroom 4C was on the 4th floor. We arrived early. The room was empty. Rows of wooden benches, the judge's bench at the front, 2 tables. I walked to the plaintiff's table and sat down. I looked up at the judge's bench. This was where it would happen. Michael sat beside me and opened his briefcase. We did not speak. We waited. At 9:05, the doors opened. Amanda walked in first, then Ryan, then Connor Hayes. Amanda wore an expensive cream-colored dress. Designer. I recognized the label. $1,500. I had seen the credit card statement in the subpoenaed records. Paid for with money stolen from Thomas's accounts. She looked confident, composed. She sat at the defendant's table. Ryan beside her. Connor joined them. Amanda glanced over at me. Her eyes swept across my face. A quiet woman in a navy suit, a widow. She looked away. She still thought I was weak. At 9:20, the clerk entered. "All rise, the Honorable Judge Catherine Brooks presiding." I stood. Michael stood beside me. Across the aisle, Amanda and Ryan stood. Judge Brooks entered. Early 60s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense expression, 20 years on the bench. She sat, we sat. She looked at the case file, then at us. "Good morning. We are here for Henderson versus Peterson. Counsel, are both parties ready to proceed?" Michael stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Connor stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Brooks nodded. "Let's begin." I kept my eyes forward, my hands folded in my lap. Thomas's ring pressed against my chest beneath my blouse. Amanda had no idea what was coming. None of them did. If you're still here, drop any number from 1 to 7 in the comments so I know you're still with me. And if you were in my place standing on the edge of this courtroom, would you keep pretending to be weak and let them underestimate you? Or reveal everything at once and end it right there? Tell me what you would do. And one quick note before we continue, the next part of this story includes some dramatized elements added for storytelling and educational purposes. If this isn't for you, you're free to stop watching here. Connor Hayes stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. He began his opening statement at 9:22. "Your Honor, this case is about a vulnerable woman who has been through unimaginable grief. Barbara Henderson lost her husband 3 months ago. Since then, she has been unable to manage her own affairs. She is confused, forgetful. She isolated herself from her daughter. And most troubling, she convinced her husband to leave her everything, cutting out their daughter, Amanda, entirely." He gestured toward me. "Mrs. Henderson needs protection from herself." He spoke for 12 minutes. He painted me as incompetent, as a manipulator who had isolated Thomas and coerced him into changing his will. I sat quietly, my hands folded. I did not react. At 9:35, Judge Brooks asked Connor to call his first witness. The petitioner calls Amanda Peterson. Amanda walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat down. Connor began. "Mrs. Peterson, can you describe your relationship with your mother?" Amanda's voice was soft. "We were estranged for years. But when my father got sick, I tried to reconnect. I wanted to be there for both of them." "How did your mother respond?" "She pushed me away. Every time I called, she said it wasn't a good time. Every time I tried to visit, she made excuses. I watched her. She looked like a daughter who cared. She was lying. Did you notice changes in your father before he died?" "Yes, he seemed confused, forgetful. My mother was making all his decisions. She wouldn't let me talk to him alone." Another lie. "And his will?" Amanda's voice wavered, practiced emotion. "It changed suddenly. Just weeks before he died. Everything went to my mother. I think she pressured him. I think she took advantage of his condition." She looked at the judge. "I just want to help my mother. She's not capable of managing the estate alone." Connor sat down. Judge Brooks looked at Michael. "Mr. Reynolds, do you wish to cross-examine?" Michael stood. "Not at this time, Your Honor." Connor's eyebrows went up. He had expected a challenge. Judge Brooks nodded. "Mr. Reynolds, you may present your case." Michael stood again. "Your Honor, before I begin, may I ask Mr. Hayes a question?" Judge Brooks frowned slightly. "Proceed." Michael turned to Connor. "Mr. Hayes, do you know what my client did for a living?" Connor hesitated. "She was a bank employee, some kind of manager. Did you research her background, her career?" Connor's face tightened. "I reviewed the relevant materials." "So you don't know?" Michael turned to Judge Brooks. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Barbara Henderson to the stand." I stood and walked to the witness stand. The clerk held out the Bible. I placed my left hand on it and raised my right. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." I sat down. I straightened my back. I looked directly at Judge Brooks. I saw her eyes sharpen. She was looking at me differently now, not as the fumbling widow from the deposition footage, as someone else. Michael approached. "Mrs. Henderson, would you please state your full name and occupation for the record?" I took a breath. "Barbara Ann Henderson, Vice President, Senior Fraud Prevention, retired." The courtroom was silent. Judge Brooks leaned forward. Connor's pen stopped moving. Amanda's face went pale. I kept my eyes on the judge. "I worked in banking for 30 years, Your Honor. I specialized in financial crimes, elder exploitation, fraud investigations. I testified as an expert witness in 38 cases. 31 resulted in convictions." Michael nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. Now let's talk about what really happened." I stood on the witness stand, hands still raised from the oath. The courtroom felt different from this angle. I testified before, but never for myself. Michael approached. Mrs. Henderson, can you tell the court about your professional background? I straightened. Barbara Ann Henderson, Vice President, Senior Fraud Prevention Community Trust Bank, Austin, Texas. I worked there for 35 years before retiring in 2022. Connor stood immediately. Your Honor, we're aware of Mrs. Henderson's employment history. What's at issue here is her current mental state following the traumatic loss of her husband 2 months ago. Judge Catherine Brooks turned to him. Mr. Hayes, you filed a petition claiming Mrs. Henderson is incompetent to manage her own affairs. Did you investigate her professional qualifications before making that claim? Connor shifted his weight. Your Honor, we reviewed her employment records thoroughly. She held a vice president title, yes. But we also reviewed her psychological history from 1974, which shows a pattern of mental vulnerability. Combined with the recent trauma of losing her husband and her behavior during the deposition, 1974. Judge Brooks's tone sharpened. You're basing a competency claim on a teenage trauma from 50 years ago. Not solely, Your Honor, but when combined with her current grief and the confusion she exhibited during deposition, we believe it demonstrates a concerning pattern. Judge Brooks held up a hand. We'll address the deposition shortly. Mrs. Henderson, please continue. I nodded. I specialized in fraud prevention and elder financial exploitation. I trained bank employees across Texas to recognize warning signs of financial abuse. I also served as an expert witness in criminal and civil cases involving fraud. Michael pulled up a document on the screen. How many cases? 38 cases over 23 years. 31 resulted in convictions or judgments against the defendants. Judge Brooks leaned forward, studying me. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. Mrs. Henderson, did you testify in this courthouse before? Yes, Your Honor, twice. The Davidson embezzlement case in 2019 and the Martinez elder exploitation case in 2022. The judge's expression shifted. I presided over Davidson. I remember your testimony. It was excellent. Thank you, Your Honor. Connor's confidence visibly cracked. He exchanged a panicked glance with Amanda in the gallery. I met the judge's eyes. Your Honor, Mr. Hayes isn't wrong when he says I'm a bank employee. But over 35 years, my job wasn't counting money. It was counting lies. Connor shifted uncomfortably. I continued. I investigated fraud. I documented elder financial exploitation. I trained employees across Texas to recognize warning signs. And I sat in witness stands like this 138 times to put people like Ryan Peterson in prison. I turned to face Connor directly. Mr. Hayes asked me during the deposition what I did at the bank. I told him management operations compliance. All true. But he never asked the right follow-up questions. He never asked if I'd testified in court. He never asked how many criminals I'd helped convict. I looked back at Judge Brooks. 31 convictions, Your Honor. I sat across from fraudsters, embezzlers, and con artists for 3 decades. I know exactly what they look like. I know exactly how they operate. A pause. And I know exactly what my daughter and her husband have done to my family. The courtroom was silent. Connor looked down at his notes, face flushed. Judge Brooks leaned back. Mrs. Henderson, during your deposition, you appeared hesitant, unsure. Can you explain why? Because I was being watched by 2 people who wanted me declared incompetent, Your Honor. They were looking for any sign of weakness. So I gave them what they expected a grieving widow struggling to remember details. But you weren't actually confused. No, Your Honor, I was strategic. Mr. Hayes asked vague questions. I gave vague answers. He assumed I meant something I didn't say. That's not my fault. Judge Brooks turned to Connor. Mr. Hayes, did you ask Mrs. Henderson if she was an expert witness? No, Your Honor. Did you ask about her specific professional qualifications? I asked about her employment. Yes or no? A long pause. No. The judge removed her glasses. Then Mrs. Henderson had no obligation to volunteer information you didn't request. Answering carefully under oath while being questioned by opposing counsel is not incompetence, Mr. Hayes. It's intelligence. She looked at me with something close to approval. Michael returned to his position. Mrs. Henderson, are you ready to walk the court through what you discovered when you reviewed your late husband's financial records? Yes. Michael approached with a folder. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of systematic financial exploitation of Thomas Henderson in the months before his death. Connor shot to his feet. Objection! But Judge Brooks was already nodding. Overruled. Proceed. Michael placed bank statements on the screen. Connor's face went pale. Michael placed a stack of bank statements on the screen. Thomas's savings account. Community Trust Bank. Mrs. Henderson, can you walk us through what you found? I took a breath. 8 withdrawals over 12 months. November 2023 through October 2024. Total of $62,400. The numbers appeared on the screen, highlighted in yellow. November 15th, 2023, $8,400. December 18th, 2023, $7,200. January 22nd, 2024, $9,100. March 5th, 2024, $6,800. May 10th, 2024, $8,200. July 3rd, 2024, $7,500. August 19th, 2024, $6,700. October 3rd, 2024, $8,500. These withdrawals were authorized how? Michael asked. Each one was made in person at a branch location. The withdrawal slips show Thomas's signature and Amanda Peterson listed as the recipient. Michael pulled up another document. And you kept a record of visitors to your home. Yes, Thomas and I maintained a household log. It was a habit from my banking career documenting who came to the house, when, and why. The visitor log appeared on screen. November 12th, 2023. Amanda visited weekend, December 16th, 2023. Amanda visited Sunday, January 20th, 2024. Amanda visited Saturday, March 2nd, 2024. Amanda visited weekend, May 8th, 2024. Amanda visited July 1st, 2024. Amanda visited holiday weekend, August 17th, 2024. Amanda visited October 1st, 2024. Amanda visited. Michael placed the two documents side by side. What pattern did you notice? Every withdrawal happened within 3 days of Amanda's visit. The courtroom was silent. Connor stood. Your Honor, correlation isn't causation. Judge Brooks raised a hand. Mr. Hayes, that's not coincidence. That's a pattern. Michael continued. Mrs. Henderson, did Thomas authorize these withdrawals? Not knowingly. In his journal, which we'll present shortly, he wrote that he didn't remember approving them. He suspected they were happening, but by the time he realized the scope, he was too ashamed to confront Amanda directly. So how did Amanda gain access to Thomas's accounts? Michael pulled up another document. Your Honor, I'd like to present a power of attorney document dated October 3rd, 2024. It grants Amanda Peterson full authority over Thomas Henderson's financial affairs. The document appeared on screen. Thomas's signature at the bottom, a notary stamp in the corner. This document was notarized by Gerald Patterson, Michael said. Mrs. Henderson, did you investigate Mr. Patterson? Yes. Gerald Patterson was a notary public in Travis County. His commission number is listed on the stamp. Mr. Patterson retired in August 2019. His notary commission expired at that time. This document is dated October 3rd, 2024, 5 years after his retirement. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Connor shot to his feet. Objection! We haven't had time to verify. Michael cut him off. Your Honor, I have Mr. Patterson's notary records from the Texas Secretary of State. Commission number 129847356, expired August 15, 2019. I also have his death certificate. Mr. Patterson passed away in February 2023. The judge leaned forward. Someone used a stamp from a deceased retired notary to forge a power of attorney. Yes, Your Honor. This is felony forgery under Texas Penal Code Section 32.21. Amanda's face went white. Ryan stared straight ahead. Connor sat down slowly, all fight gone. Judge Brooks removed her glasses. Mr. Hayes, your client presented this power of attorney as evidence of Thomas Henderson's wishes. You're telling me it's a forgery. Connor said nothing. Michael continued. Your Honor, the notary records are clear. This document is fraudulent. Combined with the withdrawal pattern and Thomas's own journal, which documents his confusion and fear, this establishes systematic financial exploitation. The judge turned to the court reporter. Note for the record, the district attorney's office will be notified of potential felony forgery and elder financial exploitation. Michael paused, letting the weight of the evidence settle. Your Honor, the $62,000 stolen from Thomas Henderson represents direct exploitation of a dying man by his own daughter. But this case is about more than money. It's about a predatory pattern. Connor stood. Objection relevance. This case is about the Henderson estate, which was targeted, Michael interrupted, because Ryan Peterson has been operating a systematic fraud scheme for years. We're not asking this court to rule on those broader crimes. We're asking this court to recognize that Thomas Henderson was not a random victim. He was deliberately selected by a career predator who married into this family for access. Judge Brooks leaned forward. Mr. Reynolds, are you suggesting there are additional victims beyond Mr. Henderson? Yes, Your Honor, we've uncovered evidence of a larger pattern of fraud. But that's a matter for federal authorities. Today we're here to prove that Barbara Henderson is competent, that Thomas Henderson was of sound mind, and that they were both systematically exploited by people they trusted. The judge nodded slowly. Noted. The broader fraud allegations are beyond this court's scope, but the pattern is relevant to motive and credibility. Proceed carefully, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you, Your Honor. Michael turned back to me. Mrs. Henderson Thomas mentions recordings in his final journal entry. Did you find those recordings? Yes, 4 audio files in the same safe where I found his journal. Your Honor. Michael said, before we present the audio evidence, I'd like Mrs. Henderson to read from Thomas's journal. It provides crucial context for what we're about to hear. Judge Brooks looked at Connor. Any objection? Connor sat silent, defeated. Proceed. Michael approached the bench with a leather-bound journal. Thomas's journal. Your Honor, I'd like to present Thomas Henderson's personal journal recovered from a locked safe in his home office. Connor stood. Objection, we haven't had time. Judge Brooks cut him off. Mr. Hayes, was this listed in evidence disclosure? Yes, Your Honor, January 3rd, 3 weeks ago. Overruled, proceed. Michael opened to the first entry. Mrs. Henderson, please read September 15th. I steadied my breath. September 15th, Amanda called today. First time in 13 years. She wants to reconnect. Barbara is cautious. I want to believe Amanda has changed. But when she asked about our savings, there was something in her voice, something calculating. October 3rd. Amanda brought Ryan today. He's charming. But he kept looking at things, the paintings, the furniture, like he was appraising them. Barbara said, something's wrong. I didn't want to believe her. November 10th. Ryan asked about my estate plan today. What happens if something happens to you? I told him I'm not dead yet. He laughed, but his eyes didn't. December 2nd. My head felt foggy today. Amanda brought papers. Insurance forms, she said. I signed them because I trust my daughter. Later, I looked power of attorney. Why would I sign that? I'm so ashamed. December 20th. Money is missing from our accounts. I called Amanda. She said it's for investments I approved. I don't remember approving anything. Am I losing my mind? January 8th. I'm not losing my mind. 8 withdrawals. Every one within 3 days of Amanda's visits. They're stealing from me. My own daughter. I can't tell Barbara, it would destroy her. But I'm recording our conversations. If something happens, Barbara will need proof. My voice shook. Michael turned to the last page. February 14th. February 14th. Barbara, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stop them while I was alive. I was ashamed I'd been fooled by my own daughter. But I documented everything. The recordings are in the safe. Use them. Stop them. You are the strongest person I know. I love you, Barbara. Always. Thomas. Tears ran down my face. Amanda pressed her hands to her face, sobbing. When did you read this? Michael asked. December 10th, 3 weeks after Thomas died. I cried for hours. Then I got angry. Thomas's shame wouldn't be meaningless. He mentions recordings. Yes, 4 recordings in the same safe. Michael turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to present those recordings now. Connor stood. Objection. We haven't reviewed audio evidence. Mr. Hayes. Michael said the recordings were disclosed January 3rd as Exhibits 9 through 12, 3 weeks ago. Judge Brooks's expression hardened. Did you receive the files? Yes, but we prioritized. Did you listen to them? Pause. No, Your Honor. That was your mistake. Properly disclosed. Overruled. Connor sat heavily. Amanda looked at him panicked. Michael connected the recorder to the speakers. Your Honor, I've compiled the key sections into 3 minutes. Judge Brooks nodded. Proceed. Michael looked at me. Are you prepared? I gripped the stand. Yes. The speakers activated. I closed my eyes, and Thomas spoke. Thomas's voice filled the courtroom, clear, determined. Recording 1. Amanda insistent. Dad, we need $20,000. You have plenty. Mom won't even notice. Thomas, that's our retirement. Please, Dad, I'm begging you. Recording 2. Ryan Smooth. Thomas, you forgot our conversation last week. You forgot you agreed to the power of attorney. Your memory is getting worse. This protects Barbara too. Thomas afraid, I don't remember agreeing. That's exactly why we need to do this now before you can't make decisions at all. Recording 3. Amanda urgent. Dad sign here. We talked about this yesterday. Thomas confused. When did we? Yesterday, Dad. Ryan's waiting. Just sign. Sound of pen on paper. Thomas's shaky breath. Then recording 4. 90 seconds that destroyed everything. Thomas, I need to rest now. Door closing. Silence. They thought he was asleep. Amanda, how much longer? Ryan, does it matter? Once he's gone, we move fast. File incompetence, get guardianship. 3 months. Amanda, what if she fights? Ryan cold. She won't. She's 67 and grieving. I've done this before. Old widows never fight back. They're too broken. Pause. Amanda, what about the investors? If someone connects, Ryan, they won't. And if they do, we'll have liquidated and moved on. Silence. Thomas's voice heartbroken. Barbara, please, stop them. The courtroom was silent. Then Amanda exploded. No, she edited that. Judge Brooks's gavel cracked. Sit down. She's lying. Bailiff? I stood shaking. Sarah Coleman warned you in 2010. You called her crazy and blocked her. Amanda went white. Miss Peterson, one more word and you're in contempt. Amanda collapsed into her seat. Connor stood slowly. Mr. Hayes, any response? No, Your Honor. The defense has no questions. He sat hands shaking. When Michael called Sarah Coleman, Connor didn't object. Miss Coleman, how do you know Ryan Peterson? I was married to him, 2004 to 2008. Tell us about your mother. Linda Hoffman. She died November 2007, age 71. Estate worth $180,000. Ryan handled paperwork. By the time she died, most was gone. Did you warn anyone? Yes, 2010. I emailed Amanda before she married Ryan, told her what he'd done. The email appeared on screen. She blocked me, called me a bitter ex-wife, said she'd get a restraining order. Sarah looked at Amanda. I tried to save you. You chose not to listen. During recess, Connor spoke to Amanda in the hallway. You lied about everything. Please. I'm filing withdrawal tomorrow morning. Until then, I stay, but I'm protecting my license, not you. He walked away. Ryan appeared. You just destroyed us. Judge Brooks returned. Court adjourns. Ruling tomorrow, 9 a.m. Mr. Hayes, will you have filed by then? Yes, Your Honor. Amanda looked at me, desperate. I looked away. The courtroom felt different the next morning. Connor Hayes was gone. In his place sat Amanda and Ryan alone at the defense table. Amanda's eyes were red and swollen. Ryan stared straight ahead, expressionless. Judge Brooks entered. We all stood. Before we proceed with my ruling, the judge said, settling into her chair, I've reviewed Mr. Hayes' emergency motion to withdraw as counsel, filed at 6:45 this morning. The motion cites material misrepresentation by his client and ethical concerns regarding continued representation. The motion is granted. She looked at Amanda. Ms. Peterson, you have the right to retain new counsel. However, given the overwhelming evidence presented yesterday and the seriousness of the allegations, I'm prepared to issue my ruling today. Do you wish to request a continuance to secure representation? Amanda looked at Ryan. He shook his head, once sharp and cold. No, Your Honor, Amanda said quietly. Very well. Judge Brooks opened a file. Her expression was grave. I've presided over probate cases for 15 years. I've seen family disputes, contested wills, allegations of undue influence. But I have never seen a case quite like this. She looked at me. Mrs. Barbara Henderson, this court finds you to be fully competent in all respects. Your testimony was clear, detailed, and supported by extensive documentation. Your professional background as a fraud prevention expert and your 38 instances of expert witness testimony establish beyond question that you possess the knowledge and capability to manage your own affairs. I exhaled slowly. Furthermore, the judge continued, the petition filed by your daughter relied on a psychological evaluation from 1974, 50 years ago, and deliberately mischaracterized your behavior during a deposition where you were quite reasonably cautious in your responses to opposing counsel. She turned to Amanda. Ms. Peterson, your petition claimed your mother needed protection from herself. The evidence shows the opposite. Your mother needed protection from you. Judge Brooks's tone hardened. The evidence presented to this court demonstrates systematic financial exploitation of a dying man. 8 withdrawals totaling $62,400 each, occurring within days of your visits. A forged power of attorney using the stamp of a deceased notary. And audio recordings that capture in your own words and those of your husband a calculated plan to exploit both your father and your mother. Amanda's shoulders shook. Mr. Thomas Henderson was of sound mind. His journal entries are lucid, detailed, and heartbreaking. He knew what you were doing. He documented it. And he left evidence specifically to protect his wife from the very exploitation you attempted. The judge paused. The recordings are particularly damning. Mr. Peterson's statement, I've done this before. Old widows never fight back. Combined with testimony from his ex-wife about a nearly identical pattern of exploitation, establishes that this was not an isolated incident. This was predatory behavior. Judge Brooks looked down at her notes. The court's orders are as follows. 1. The petition for emergency guardianship is dismissed with prejudice. It may not be refiled. 2. This court refers this matter to the Travis County District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Potential charges include theft, forgery, elder financial exploitation, and perjury. 3. This court refers this matter to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The evidence suggests Mr. Peterson has engaged in a pattern of fraud spanning multiple victims over many years. Federal authorities are better equipped to investigate the full scope. 4 all assets of Amanda Peterson and Ryan Peterson are frozen effective immediately pending criminal proceedings. 5 Barbara Henderson is confirmed as the sole executor and beneficiary of Thomas Henderson's estate with full authority to administer all assets. 6 This court apologizes to Mrs. Henderson. The probate process exists to protect vulnerable individuals, not to be weaponized against them. Judge Brooks looked at me. Mrs. Henderson, your husband, would be very proud of you. My voice was barely a whisper. I hope so. The gavel fell. Amanda turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Mom, please. I stood, looked at her. My daughter, the child I'd raised. Don't, I said quietly. There's nothing left to say. I walked past her, out of the row, toward the aisle. Behind me, I heard Amanda collapse into her chair, sobbing. Ryan's voice cold and furious. Get up, don't say another word, we're done here. In the hallway, Dorothy was waiting. She hugged me tightly. You did it. I pulled back. I don't feel like I did anything. Sarah Coleman approached, eyes bright. Mrs. Henderson, thank you for believing me, for finding the truth. Thank you for keeping those records for 16 years. Michael joined us. Barbara, the FB, I will want to meet with you, probably within the week. I nodded. I have everything ready. Outside, I leaned against the courthouse wall. The January sun was cold. Dorothy stood beside me. Are you okay? I don't know. I looked up at the building. I won, but it doesn't feel like winning. What does it feel like Like I lost my daughter and found out she was never who I thought she was. Dorothy squeezed my hand. What happens now? I thought of Frank Rodriguez, of the spreadsheet with dozens of names, of the families Ryan had destroyed. There will be a criminal trial, I said. Federal charges, this isn't over. For Thomas, for Sarah's mother, for Frank Rodriguez. I met Dorothy's eyes. For all of them. 3 days later, I sat in the FBI field office with my laptop and 3 boxes. Special Agent Rebecca Torres, 42, reviewed my spreadsheet. Walk me through this. Peterson Properties Development, LLC, registered 2018, promised 15 to 20% returns on real estate investments. 2 listed properties were foreclosed or never built. I clicked through pages. I contacted victims, interviewed 12 personally. How many total? 47. She exhaled. Total invested, $3.2 million. Over 6 years, yes, classic Ponzi. Early investors got returns from new money. Frank Rodriguez, 73, Korean War veteran, $85,000 invested. His entire retirement. He reported to SEC in June. They're backlogged. Torres made notes. This is extraordinary work. Wire fraud, mail fraud, securities violations, elder exploitation. Then finish it. Those families deserve justice. We'll have warrants in 2 to 3 weeks. February 18th, 6:47 a.m. FBI agents knocked. Ryan answered. Ryan Peterson, you're under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, securities, fraud, elder financial exploitation. Handcuffs. Amanda appeared. Amanda Peterson, you're also under arrest. I want to call my mother. Your mother is a victim, ma'am. Separate vehicles, separate cells. Federal trial began February 19th. 3 weeks, 43 witnesses. Sarah testified about Linda. 12 Ponzi victims described promised security and delivered ruin. FBI accountants showed shell companies fake invoices, falsified returns. Classic Ponzi structure. Dorothy and I attended daily, front row. March 7th, I testified. Thomas knew he was dying. He knew what they were doing. He wanted me to stop them from doing it to anyone else. Defense cross-examined. You were estranged 14 years. Could grief color your judgment? I faced the jury. Amanda is my daughter. I raised her. I love her. But love doesn't make you blind. She chose to marry a con artist. She chose to exploit her dying father. Those were her choices. No follow-up. Frank Rodriguez testified. 73 uniform jacket. Mr. Peterson promised college funds for my grandchildren. I lost $85,000, 50 years of savings. You stole my dignity, my peace, my future. I'm 73 stocking shelves at night to pay rent. He turned to me. Mrs. Henderson found me, built this case, gave us hope. Dorothy held my hand. I cried. March 11th, both sides rested. Judge closing arguments tomorrow. Sentencing 6 weeks after verdict for pre-sentencing reports. Outside, Dorothy asked, How do you feel? Empty. Like I won a war but lost everything that mattered. Tomorrow it ends. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. 6 weeks after the trial, the federal courtroom felt different. No more testimonies. No more evidence. Just consequences. The judge, a different judge federal, not Catherine Brooks, read Ryan's sentence first. Her voice was clinical, devoid of emotion. Mr. Peterson, you are a predator. For 16 years, you have destroyed lives without remorse. 18 years in federal prison. Full restitution of $3.2 million plus $62,400 to the Henderson estate. Lifetime supervised release upon completion of your sentence. Permanent prohibition from working in financial services or real estate. Ryan stared straight ahead. No reaction. Then the judge turned to Amanda. Miss Peterson. The judge's tone hardened. You exploited your father when he was dying. You were warned about this man 14 years ago by Sarah Coleman. You ignored that warning. You chose greed over family. 8 years in federal prison. Full restitution jointly with Mr. Peterson. 10 years supervised release. Amanda broke. She sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking. The bailiff approached. Amanda looked back at me one last time, desperate pleading. I looked away. They let her out. The door closed. I felt nothing, no victory, just emptiness. April 2025. Amanda's letter arrived in a thin blue envelope. I left it on the kitchen counter for 3 days. Mom, I'm sorry. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm still your daughter. Please don't abandon me. I read it twice, then I wrote back. 1 page. Amanda, I forgive you, but I cannot forget. I hope you become someone your father could have been proud of. I will not write again. I mailed it the same day, July 2025. I returned to volunteer work at the bank. Richard, the coordinator, met me in the lobby. Barbara, I owe you an apology. We should have stood by you. I nodded. Let's move forward. They asked me to teach fraud prevention workshops. Within 2 weeks, I helped 2 families recognize and stop exploitation attempts targeting their elderly parents. Thomas would have smiled. October 2025. The estate was finally settled. I established the Thomas Henderson Memorial Scholarship Fund, $50,000 for engineering students who had overcome hardship. The first recipient was a young woman from foster care who wanted to build bridges. She shook my hand at the ceremony. Thank you for believing in people like me. I thought of Thomas. My husband would have loved to meet you. March 26, 2026. 1 year after the sentencing, I stood at Thomas's grave with white roses. Dorothy waited by the car, giving me space. It's over, I whispered, kneeling. Ryan got 18 years. Amanda got 8. The wind moved through the oak tree above his headstone. The 47 families. The court appointed a receiver to liquidate Ryan's assets. It's going to take years, maybe 5, but it started. Frank Rodriguez called me last week. He got his first distribution, 15%, about $12,000. It's not the $85,000 he lost, but he said it meant he could stop working nights at the grocery store. I touched the engraved letters of Thomas's name. I did what you asked. I stopped them, and I'm going to be okay too. For the first time since November 2024, I felt something close to peace. That evening, Dorothy and I sat at her kitchen table with coffee. She'd made banana bread, Thomas's favorite. You saved 47 families, she said. You brought down a Ponzi scheme. Barbara, you won. I shook my head. I lost my daughter. You lost who she chose to become, Dorothy corrected gently. That's not the same thing. I took a sip of coffee. She was right. Justice wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It was just what had to be done. Thomas had asked me to stop them. I had. And in doing so, I'd saved people I'd never met. Families who wouldn't lose their homes. Veterans who could keep their dignity. Widows who wouldn't be exploited. I'd lost Amanda. But I'd gained something too, a reminder that even at 67, even grieving, even when they tried to call me incompetent, I was still strong. More coffee? Dorothy asked. I smiled. Yes, please. Outside, the sun was setting. Tomorrow I'd go back to the bank. I'd teach another workshop. I'd keep living. And that somehow felt like enough. Looking back at my family drama stories, I realized silence nearly destroyed everything Thomas and I built. Don't be like me. Don't wait until tragedy forces you to act. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Sarah tried to warn Amanda 14 years ago. I should have paid attention. Grandma stories like mine teach hard lessons. Love doesn't mean enabling destruction. I forgave Amanda, but I also set boundaries. That's not cruelty, that's wisdom earned through pain. These family drama stories aren't just about betrayal. They're about finding strength you didn't know you had at 67. God gives us discernment for a reason. I ignored red flags because I wanted to believe my daughter had changed. That cost Thomas his peace in his final months. My advice? Trust your instincts. Protect your legacy. Document everything. Grandma stories about survival matter because they show that even when family fails you, you don't have to fail yourself. The 47 families we saved. That's what matters now. Not revenge, not bitterness, just making sure other grandma stories and family drama stories don't end in ruin. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style doesn't suit you, that's okay. Please seek content that better fits your needs.